you need to be mindful of what people think about you, but you need to be even more mindful of what you think about you. So I'm proud of my record. I'm proud of the people that I brought together. I'm proud of the efforts that I made to inspire confidence in the political process and in democracy generally. I'm proud of the work that I'm doing now with this book that I'm raising funds for and giving away. That's all I can control, right? And I just think you can get into trouble if you become overly concerned, unduly concerned, what other people think.
Welcome to a very special edition of Closer Look. If you're enjoying tonight's show on video, you can see we're in a bit of a different space here tonight to accommodate our guest and the people who have gathered here to watch the interview. He served as Premier of Ontario from 2003 to 2013, winning 3 straight elections, the most by any Liberal Premier in more than a century. He now has a new book out, his second, in fact, called Be a Good One, Words to Lead By. We're very pleased to have with us former Premier Dalton McGuinty. Premier, welcome to the show. We appreciate you stopping by.
Thanks for having me, guys. Looking forward to it.
All right, Premier, it's hard to believe, but it's actually been 12 years since you served in the top job. Have you reached the point where you can walk around publicly and nobody recognizes you?
Yes, I think it depends on the age group. Younger people don't know who the heck I am, and some older people see me and think there's something familiar about me. I'll tell you one story, if I might. I tend to traffic in stories now, but many years ago, I was in Northern Ontario on a fishing trip near Kapuskasing, and I was with 3 sons, and we were making our way back to our camp. It was late at night, and we were suddenly accosted by the local self-appointed sheriff, who begins to cross-examine me with some enthusiasm. And it kind of went like this. Where are you guys from? I said, well, we're from Ottawa. What are you doing up here? We're on a fishing trip. Where are you going? Just going over to our camp. And he says, wait a minute. Has anybody ever told you look an awful lot like that McGuinty guy? I said, yeah, I get that from time to time. He goes, that has got to bother you. Just in case.
Did you let it go? Did you just walk away?
No, but here's the great and true part, the ending to that story. When he discovered I was who I was, you know what he did? He said, would you and your boys join me for a beer?
Oh, nice.
Wow. Nice.
And he was not one of my voters, I could tell, but he was decent and warm, and it was a great experience.
Excellent.
We need a lot more of that. We're going to talk about that later.
Absolutely.
We need a lot more of that kind of thing.
So we know that you've been busy writing. What else have you been up to?
I got into politics because my father, who was the member of provincial parliament before me, was shoveling snow March 16th, 1990, and drops dead of a heart attack.
Right.
And by the way, when he was alive, I said, there is no way on God's earth I will ever remove myself from the comfort and convenience of the stands and go into the arena. Why would any sane person want to do that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
2 weeks after the funeral, I say to Terry,
I shouldn't laugh.
I say to Terry, I think I got to run. She says, we have 4 kids under 8. You're not running. I said, that is so sensible. But for me, politics has always been more an affair of the heart than the head. So to come back to your question, what am I doing now? I chair the University of Ottawa Heart Institute. It's the biggest institute of its kind in the country. We do all kinds of procedures there, but it's a way for me to remember my dad, and also to do work on behalf of anybody with heart issues.
That's good for you.
Yeah.
Yes. Your book, of course, is about leadership, and specifically, like you talked about, political leadership, people who are entering that arena. It may seem like an obvious question, but what motivated, I thought maybe some of you would want to just forget about all that, but what motivated you to decide to write a book specifically for aspiring politicians?
Yeah, I think it's the first of its kind, certainly in the country in terms of it being dedicated. So just by way of a bit of background, so I mentioned my dad was in politics. Then I got into it. I spent 23 years there. My brother David is there now. He's been there some 20 years at the federal level. And I have fallen in love with the enterprise. of politics. It's not easy. It's a contact sport. There's lots of toxicity. There's lots of cynicism. But if you bring some idealism to it and you maintain the view that most people are good and want to do good things together. But this is the problem with politics, right? So you get all kinds of erstwhile young people who are giving it some thought and who eventually get in, and they bring goodwill and energy and idealism and a sincere and earnest desire to be of service to those they are privileged to represent. And they think it's going to be smooth sailing. And then you discover it's more like a rough seagoing voyage with big waves, strong winds, dark clouds roll in. You lose sight of the stars that guide you, and you drift off course. And you end up saying things and doing things that betray your responsibility to be the best version of yourself. The good news is democracy's been around for 2,500 years. And people have commented throughout those 2,500 years. You got to be dead to be in the book, by the way, to be quoted. So they've offered us some insights and some good advice and even some wisdom, I would argue. So what I've done is I don't know if you're aware of this, guys, but I've raised enough money. I'm sending a copy of this book to all of our members of parliament, our senators, provincial politicians right across the country, big city mayors. Whether they want the book or not, they're getting it.
Right on.
It's an ancient technology. I know we live in the age of artificial intelligence. It's a book. You got to open up the damn thing, and you got to read it. And I'm hoping they'll take some time to read something that inspires them, that they might reflect on that a little bit, and that it might help them be a better version of themselves.
So if I'm a provincial representative in, say, Manitoba, I'm going to get a copy of your book
Absolutely.
in the mail? All right.
Yes.
And they've been all sent out, or you still have to be
We're
done?
in that process right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
What struck me as I read the book is it in some ways conflicts with some of the world as we know it in 2025, right? Your terms you associate, that a lot of us associate with leadership, that you associate with leadership, terms like integrity, honor, service before self, an open mind to other people's ideas, aren't necessarily terms that define some leaders today. People are actually looking for the opposite of that. Do you feel the same way?
Yes, but I remain hopeful for two reasons. One is because just by inclination, that's how I'm built. I spent 23 years in that environment, and I never stopped seeing the good in people, as I said a moment ago. And I never stopped seeing the progress that we could make if we were to work well together. And one of my favorite quotes in this book, it comes from Wordsworth, who defined hope as the paramount duty. I'll forget the rest of the quote. He just said, hope's a duty. It's not a choice. It's not an option. It's an obligation. And I can recall during the 2008 financial crisis, we were meeting together as a caucus. We gathered at Queen's Park in the caucus room, and the talk was dark. It was a very difficult and challenging time for Ontarians. And I recall pointing outside the window and saying, people out there can despair on their own. Mm-hmm. They haven't hired us on to despair for them. Our job is to give them good reasons to be hopeful. Doesn't mean we have to have neat and tidy answers for complex problems, but it does mean we have faith in our capacity to come together, to work together, to collaborate, and to find ways to make progress. We've done that as a species for thousands and thousands of years. If we keep working hard together, we'll continue to make progress.
Mm-hmm. You've answered the question, I think, already, but it does feel dark. Use the term dark. There are days when it does feel dark, when you wake up and you read the news or you think about what's happening politically in other places. If someone stops you on the street to say, why should I feel hopeful? What do you say to them?
Well, first of all, if you take a look at human history and how much we've accomplished, well, no, let's just back up for a moment. Let's accelerate forward for a moment. I think one of the reasons that this country works so well, relatively speaking, is because the question that we have kept asking ourselves is not what's in it for me, but what do we owe each other? In the War of 1812, when the French and the English here in Canada got together with our Indigenous communities and decided we were going to confront a foreign invader, the Americans, the question we were answering was, what do we owe each other? When we then founded this country, and it's an outrageous proposition, this is what we said. look, I'm going to keep my language, you're going to keep your language. I'm going to keep my religion, you're going to keep your religion. I'm going to keep my common law, you're going to keep your French civil law, and we're going to build a country, and we're going to do it on the basis that we can find strength in diversity. That's unheard of, right? The question we were answering is, what do we owe each other? We fought in 2 world wars, right, to protect and to stand up for democracy. The question we were answering is, what do we owe each other? The Canada Pension Plan, universal health care, the Canada Child Benefit, all those kinds of things that we did, we were answering the question, what do we owe each other? So we have a record of progress. One of the challenges that we are confronted with as a species, again, is because our lives are so short. But if we could see 500 years and 1,000 years, we could see, for example, you know this guy, Donald Trump? Trumps come and go. We're just so transfixed by this issue at this time that sometimes we don't remember to get off the deck of the ship, get into the crow's nest, look out at the distant horizon, understand what has happened over the course of human history. And that's one of the things that you develop when I put this book together and looked back 2,500 years, you get to see history in greater relief. Mm-hmm. And when you review history, it makes you more optimistic about our capacity to keep doing the right things. Mm-hmm.
You mentioned the passing of your father. Would your life have taken a different turn had that not have happened? Or did you think at some point you would always dip your toe into the political realm?
Well, I'd had a hankering. I was president of the Riding Association. When I was young, my dad was president of John Turner's Riding Association when he was Minister of Justice.
Oh, wow.
And a family hobby was for us to go and work on campaigns. We'd show up at a campaign headquarters, stuff some envelopes, put up some signs, deliver brochures to doors and those kinds of things. So it was my dad in particular impressed upon us that it was never going to be good enough to grow up, get a job, pay your taxes, and just respect the law. Too many generations had worked hard and sacrificed to hand us down an extraordinary quality of life. And we each had a responsibility, each generation that is, to pick up where the last one left off. And there are all kinds of ways that we can build on that magnificent foundation. But one, to my way of thinking, that's particularly exciting is politics.
How often was your dad on your shoulder during your time in politics?
He was there, but you know what? The truth is, he never saw me get the nomination. He never saw me get elected. He never saw me become leader of my party. He never saw me become premier.
Yeah.
But I could not have achieved any of that without his influence for good.
How proud would he have been?
He would have been very proud. Although, my mother, who's very good at keeping me and my 9 siblings grounded, she was once asked, and I was very proud of her for saying this. It was my 25th anniversary in politics, and a reporter said, "You must be very proud of your son." And you know what she said? This is what a great mom she said. "I'm proud of all my kids." I thought that was a great answer,
It's a good answer from a mother. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of all the leadership qualities you talk about in the book, Premier McGuinty, is there one that you wish you knew a whole lot earlier?
I don't know so much whether it's so much a quality, but it is a kind of a conclusion that I came to. And that is, you need to be mindful of what people think about you. But you should be even more mindful of what you think about you. Your time in politics will come and go. Somebody once said, I don't have the quote in here, but graveyards are filled with indispensable people. It took them about 15 minutes to replace me. And I can recall after I'd announced to my caucus that I was stepping down, when I was subsequently chatting with my caucus, they were looking over my shoulder. Like, who's next? Right? This is just in the natural order of things. I'm not complaining. This is how we behave as human beings. So I think what I learned is you're going to be confronted with all kinds of decisions. Some are harder than others. You've got to do what you think is right. Not easy, not comfortable, not convenient, and sometimes not even popular. You need to be able to, you want to be able to live with yourself and say, I gave it my best. You will never bring perfection to the undertaking. That eludes all of us. But I do think that you can find comfort and satisfaction in knowing whatever you undertake in life. The book's called Be a Good One. The first quote in the book is, whatever you are, be a good one. So my dad would have said, there are only 6 questions in life that count. Mine would have been, first one, was I a good son? Number 2, was I a good brother? Number 3, was I a good husband? Number 4, was I a good dad? Number 5, was I a good friend? And number 6, did I find some opportunity to do something good for others? Nothing in there about fame, nothing in there about fortune. Sometimes we get so caught up in our hectic, just-in-time lives, we can lose sight of what's truly important. And I think back to the issue of leadership, just do what you think is right. Get the best advice that you can. Mm-hmm. Think about it with sincerity, and then make the call. Yeah.
Nothing in there either about being was a good premier.
Well, that's I think if you make an effort to bring integrity and good character to whatever responsibility you undertake, you get to tick that box. But I think it's the effort that counts, right?
Yeah.
That you just want to know that I gave it my best.
We've had your successor, Kathleen Wynne, on our show a couple of times over the years. I want to play a short clip of what she said when I asked her about you.
He was great. He was, he's a very dignified and kind of shy guy. So he wasn't a hail fellow well met. He kept his counsel, but he was with us through all our caucus meetings. He was always a calming influence, Scott. Whatever was going on in the media or whatever craziness was going on in the legislature, Dalton always kept his cool. So I experienced him as one of the most decent people I had ever met.
So what does it mean to you when you hear that?
Well, it was an honor for me to work with Kathleen. She brought so much class and integrity to her responsibilities, and she was just a joy to work with. And she mentioned something there that reminds me of a quote in here, which I would commend to the leaders of the day, but especially as we look to establish a new relationship with the U.S. 2,000 years ago, Julius Caesar said, "Nobody has ever successfully consulted their reason and their passion at the same time." Or as my mother would say, you can't be smart and angry. Which one do you want to be? So I think we need to, when it comes to the U.S., for example, in this important relationship, we need to play the long game. And I think I'd rather that we be cool and calm and collected and make ongoing efforts to restore, repair, rehabilitate, reform, transform the relationship that we have. So it's easy, and one of the things the book tries to counter is, it's human nature for us to respond in kind. We tend to respond to heat with heat, to bitterness with bitterness, anger with anger, resentment with resentment. But, you've got to, I'm going to tell you another story.
That's what we're here for.
Okay. So this is an old one. There's a young man, and he's troubled, and he goes to see the wisest person in the village, an elder, a woman. And he says to her, "I got a problem." She says, "Talk to me." He says, "Some days, my family and friends, I love them so much, there's not enough I can do for them. On other days, they tick me off so much, I want to cause them pain. What's wrong with me?" She says, "Well, I'm going to tell you. There are 2 dogs inside you. One's a kind dog, the other one's a mean dog, and they're fighting." He says, "Okay, well, which dog is going to win?" And she says, "Well, that all depends on which dog you decide to feed." Here's the moral of the story. First of all, each and every one of us has those two dogs inside of us. And we have to be deliberate and determined to ensure we are feeding the kind dog, being the best version of ourselves. More importantly, if you're a leader, you need to speak to the kind dog in me. I can be a jerk on my own. I can be selfish and shallow and short-sighted and mean-spirited and petty on my own. You want to be my leader? Help me be the kind dog. Help me be the best version of myself, because all of us, when we are at our best as a species, there's something noble about us. We're kind and caring and thoughtful and resourceful and resilient and compassionate and determined, courageous, and at our very best, we're wise. So we need to be mindful of that reality when it comes to human nature. But if you want to be my leader, don't do what the wrong kinds of leaders have done throughout history. And what they do is they say to the crowd, you know what our problem is? Our problem is those people. And I'll categorize them by their religion or their gender or their place of origin or their race. And that's not what I want my leader. I want my leader to help me be the best version of myself.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned your brother, David, currently the Minister of National Defense, whose plate is very full, to say the least. How often does he reach out to you for advice?
Not often enough. We chat from time to time, and he's got his hands full of policies and the various options. I try to be more of a good brother. I've had lots of experience in politics, obviously. A good brother, and to make sure he's looking after himself, getting enough time with his wife, my sister-in-law, and his kids, looking after his health, and reminding him that I know he's under lots of pressure, but I'm going to come back to another quote in the book here. This one is from Rabindranath Tagore, an Indian Nobel Prize winner. And he said, I slept and I dreamt that life was joy. I awoke and I saw that life was service. I acted and behold, service was joy. So I'm trying to remind my brother and anybody else who enjoys the opportunity to serve in government, that's a privilege. That's an honor.
Yeah.
Don't forget that. Because you can get so hung up in the dealing with the slings and arrows and the rigor of the environment, that you can lose sight that it's just an honor to be in a position to be helpful to people.
Mm-hmm. Let's get hung up on the slings and arrows for a minute. How often are you following what's happening at Queen's Park these days? Do you pay attention to what's going on?
Not too closely, because, what I've tried to do is a couple of things. One is, when I left politics, leaders don't like to think of this, but you are, as a leader of your party, but particularly as a leader of a government, you are your government and party's liver. You absorb toxins, rightly, sometimes wrongly. Sometimes you get blamed for things that you never did. But sometimes you get credit for things that you never did. So it kind of comes out in the wash. I think you need to recognize that. Come back to your question again.
Yeah, but whether you're watching Queen's Park or you're not tuning into question period every day.
No, I'm not tuning into question period. I've tried to. So anyway, I removed myself from politics. Yes. I removed myself from politics. Took the toxins with me, theoretically, and you try to give as clean and as empty a stage to your successor as you can. I've tried to transition from partisan to something maybe a little bit removed from that. The truth is, political personalities come and go, issues come and go. What I'm focusing on today are are issues that related to how do we come together? What's happening to democracies generally? How can we come together and ensure that we have a strong democracy in Canada? Parties will come and parties will go. Leaders will come and leaders will go. Issues will come and issues will go. What counts is how it is that we grapple with the issues of the day. That's where I'm trying to be of some net, positive value. In a way that transcends partisanship.
Did people reach out to you? Does Premier Doug Ford ever reached out to you for advice on anything he's been dealing with over the years he's been there?
No, he hasn't. We've chatted, when we've bumped into each other from time to time. I've heard from different people of different occasions, and people ask me, I think especially, they ask me, should they go into politics? Right? And one of my stock answers is you got to be prepared to say yes to two questions. The first question is, are you prepared to win? And all that entails, you'll become a target unfairly in some ways, and you'll spend a lot of time away from those who are closest to you in life, and you'll have to deal with some difficult issues. You got to be able to say yes to that. And the other question you got to be able to say yes to is, are you prepared to lose? This is a public loss. Your name will be on signs, on people's lawns, in the public domain. Yeah. And when you lose, people will know that you have lost. It's not a private loss. It's a public loss. If you can't cope with that, if you can't reconcile yourself to that as not being not so much a personal thing, but just wasn't there for you, then you can't run.
The party, again, is looking for a new leader. What do they need to do to turn things around? And are you still a card-carrying member of the Liberal Party?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be one for life. I think that they need to be patient. I think that I wouldn't rush a leadership race. I think that one of the luxuries that we enjoy in opposition that you forget about when you're in government is you have some time. I remember in opposition, I went to Ireland to better understand what they used to call in those days the Celtic Tiger. Why was that economy taking off? What were they doing there so well? Then I went to England to take a look at why their schools were performing so well. And today we have an opportunity to, yes, we need to be concerned about shortcomings, and all governments are going to preside over some shortcomings. It's just the nature of the adventure. But I think it's also an opportunity to use a metaphor I used a moment ago, to get into the crow's nest, understand what are they doing in South Korea that is so very cool? What's happening in Sweden when it comes to healthcare? What are they doing in Singapore when it comes to encouraging families to support their parents? Fish the world for those new ideas, bring them back so that when we do have a new leader and an opportunity to turn to the people again in an election, we've got some new and exciting ideas to bring to the table.
Premier, you talked about toxins. I do want to ask you about one because it's an issue that people do talk about. There's a group of Ontarians, when they hear your name, they think about the gas plant scandal and what happened there. And it's something that even people hear that you're coming to town, and it's something they're asking you about. Oh, yeah, Premier McGuinty, the cancellation of those gas plants. If you could go back in time, would you have done anything different? I want to give you a chance to talk about that
sure.
and give your side of it.
I would have closed those gas plants, yes. But I would have done it differently. I'll tell you what I did. What people don't know is that we located, I think, 17 other gas plants. Nobody ever talks about those, right? But these two in particular were located in places where our laws prevented us from locating a single wind turbine. So we're going to put a gas plant beside, one case it was beside a hospital, another one was beside a school and homes. It was a bad decision. And I had outsourced that decision-making to I forget what the name of the body was, but it was a government agency. But at the end of the day, the buck stops with me. People don't know the head of that agency. They know this head. And I can recall during the campaign, the Conservatives arguing, you can't trust McGuinty to close those gas plants. Only we will close those gas plants. So it is what it is. I should have kept that decision making closer to me and understood before they made that decision about some of the complexities and the environmental considerations and those kinds of things. But these things happen.
Yeah. What lingers too, I think, is the fact that your former chief of staff went to jail for a few months. He was convicted for wiping some hard drives. Just again, I want to make sure you have a chance to answer these questions. Did you have anything to do with that? Because some people think you did.
No, I didn't. And it's very unfortunate. One of the biggest challenges that you have in politics is to bring good people into politics, right? And my former chief of staff was a decent, honorable, hardworking individual who brought lots of integrity and caring to the undertaking. And I can recall somebody once telling a story about it'll be a test for you guys. He was a Democratic nominee. He ended up with Jennifer Flowers on a boat called Monkey Business. Do you remember who?
I should know that. Trivia question. Anyone in the crowd know the answer to that one?
When you said Jennifer Flowers, something went off.
You guys know? John Edwards? Is that John?
No.
Good try.
But in any event, he was close to being a Democratic
Yes,
nominee.
I know what you're talking about.
So the media, but he was a bit cocky, and he said, "I've got nothing to hide." And so the media followed him around, and they had a telephoto lens, and they got this compromising picture of him on a boat with a young woman, not his wife, on his lap. That was the end of his career. 30 years later, that reporter writes a story, and he talks about how he deeply regretted killing that career. And he keeps a little sign up on his wall, which is, "We're not the worst thing we've ever done. And if any one of us was to become known for the biggest mistakes we had made, rather than hopefully a lifetime of sincere effort to toe the line and maybe even do good things, that would be unfair." So people are going to have some complaints and concerns, and I get that. And we live in a democracy, and I think it's important for them to be able to do that. But I'd also say that what we owe each other is a full assessment of our records, individually or as governments. So you mentioned off the top, we won 3 in a row that hadn't been done in over, I think, 125 years. Doesn't mean we were perfect. I forget who said, I think it was Kant, German philosopher, who said that out of the crooked timber of humanity, no straight thing was ever made. And that's just who we are, right? And so did my government have some shortcomings? Yeah, I accept that. But I'm proud that we were the first jurisdiction in North America to offer full-day kindergarten. I'm proud that we created the biggest urban green belt in the world. I'm proud that we adopted the HST, which was very controversial, I can tell you, at the time. And a number of other things that we did, right? So it's just, when people look at me, I ask them to take a look at the big picture.
I appreciate that. And that's why I ask those questions, because it's on people's minds what people think of. Last question about that. Does it frustrate you that so many people think of that one decision? You talked about your whole record. There are still the group of people that think of that decision. No, it doesn't. And it's because I don't think about what people think about. As to come back to something like I said earlier, you need to be mindful of what people think about you, but you need to be even more mindful of what you think about you. So I'm proud of my record. I'm proud of the people that I brought together. I'm proud of the efforts that I made to inspire confidence in the political process and in democracy generally. I'm proud of the work that I'm doing now with this book that I'm raising funds for and giving away. That's all I can control, right? And I just think you can get into trouble if you become overly concerned, unduly concerned what other people think. I know in a democracy and
You got to have sufficient popularity. You got to get the votes to get a mandate and all that stuff. But you've really, I think at the end of the day, you just got to give your best and find consolation and comfort and pride and satisfaction in doing that.
We know you have an event to go to, so just a couple more quick questions.
Yep.
We appreciate your time. I think we often hear of you described as Premier Dad, I think is the term. Is that a term that you like?
I do kind of like it. I do kind of like it. Look, I've talked earlier. I am a brother and a husband and a father and a son. I've been a lawyer. I've been a premier. I've served on boards. And my greatest joy in life, and I think my biggest responsibility, is to be a good dad. You want to affect eternity? I think it's being a dad and the influence you have on your children. So I don't mind being called Premier Dad.
Last question for me is what clearly resonates from this book, and is that you believe deeply in politics, the political process, and you believe in democracy. And it is something that we've seen under attack in other places. I think I've asked this question already in a different way, but why do you think do you still think democracy will be here 2,500 years from now? You mentioned it's been around for 2,500 years.
It will, but I think people need to better understand, and there's a great quote in here, the foundation for our strength in democracy. So I'll read a quote. I won't read the whole thing because it's a little bit long, but it's from Edmund Burke. He was an Anglo-Irish statesman, 1700s. He said, and this is kind of, it's a bit mystifying at first. He said, manners are of more importance than laws. Upon them, in great measure, the laws depend. The laws touch us, but here and there and now and then. Now, when this guy was talking in the 1700s about manners, he's not talking about etiquette. He's not talking about table manners. He's talking about the shared values. And what he's telling us is the foundation of our democracy is not our Constitution, it's not our laws, it's not our legislatures, it's not our courts, it's not our media, and it's not even our free elections. It's how we treat each other. If we are civil and respectful and tolerant, that is the foundation upon which we build the Constitution and the laws and our legislative proceedings in our courts and all of that. So I think that, I guess if I had a warning shot, I wanted to fire across the bow for Canadians and free citizens living in liberal democracies anywhere around the world, is to understand it starts with us and how we connect to each other and how we relate to each other and how we accept each other. If we show signs of incivility, if we become intolerant and disrespectful, that begins to gnaw away at the foundations of our political institutions. Those institutions aren't going to save us. At the end of the day, we are going to save us.
Before we let you go, closing thoughts.
Well, thanks very much for the opportunity. People ask me, how will I judge whether or not my book is a success? I'm hoping that, as I said before, I think it's an ancient technology. It's not a bot; it's a book. And I'm hoping that across the country, at least a few people who hold elected office will open up the book, find a quotation or two that inspires them, that moves them, that helps them see more clearly, and helps them be a better version of themselves, and helps them appeal to the better version in all of us.
Well said. Premier Dalton McGuinty, thank you for
Pleasure,
this.
guys. Thanks for having me.
That's all for a Closer Look tonight. Closer Look at villagemedia.ca if you'd like to reach out. And, of course, check out our new website, closerlookpodcast.ca. That's it for us tonight. Enjoy your weekend. We'll see you Monday night at 7 right here on Closer Look.
Frisco and Scott's Wardrobe provided in part by Moores, Sault Ste. Marie.